Yo guys, if you like loot, this one is for you. But first, help me out by liking, subbing, and doing the YouTube things. More importantly, let me know in the comments how I can do better and keep improving. Chapter 2 and 3, I'll be covering the basic mechanics of the build. So if you've seen some of my previous videos, you can skip that. In Chapter 4, I'll cover the most recent build changes. Then I'll showcase the build run using 215% rarity gear. Then in Chapter 6, I'll show 3 different versions so that even beginner players can start using Magic Find in their playthrough. Then finally, I'll discuss some notable uniques that are worth considering. One disclaimer, this is focused on Magic Find and not survivability. So if you're dying too much, try to use the dodge button. So cast on Minion, Death, and FireFlower. So the interaction is quite simple. We cast a fire spell. That fire spell summons Raging Spirits. When the Raging Spirits die, we get energy, and then triggered spells gets triggered. We can put multiple spells into each socket here. So we can have 5 spells that trigger at the same time, or you can put one spell such as Comet, and then support gems. This in a nutshell is how the build works. The only thing that you need for this build is the FireFlower Solar Amulet, which is a must-have, as well as the Necromantic Talisman that passes all the amulet stats into the minions. So these are the must-have, and these are the reason why Raging Spirits die when you ignite somebody, because of this line here. Take 100 fire damage when you ignite the enemy. So this 100 damage actually goes to Raging Spirits. So when you or the Raging Spirits ignite somebody, they die, and then the cast on Minion Death triggers happen and all the spells get triggered. So the faster you ignite, the more Raging Spirits die, the more spells are triggered. In my previous videos, I had quite a few questions about why Chronomancer. Just because I picked him early access, no other reason. I'm not bothered to level another character until major patch changes, so I'm stuck with Chronomancer for now until I start playing something else when there's a new patch. There's also a very common question of, will this work on different classes, different variations or whatever? My only question to you guys is, why wouldn't it work? There's nothing Chronomancer specific about this build. All you need is the amulet and the passive, and then you get the Raging Spirits, they equip all the skills, and it should work the exact same. So this is how the cast on Minion FireFlower interaction works. So now the second interaction that's important for this build is Trampletoes and Frostwall. How does this work? So Frostwall summons many crystals. Each crystal has its own life. When you destroy these crystals with the skill, the overkill damage goes around 2 meters of that crystal and everything dies. Each crystal has its own HP, and then when the overkill damage happens, it actually chains across the crystals. I'm not too sure about this, but that's what I've read online. What I'm sure about is that if there's 10 crystals and you overkill them all at the same time, that's 10x of the overkill damage. And I think that damage actually chains across, so it actually cascades, which is why this build, or this interaction in particular between Boots and Frostwall is ridiculous. I've covered it in my previous video, but that in a nutshell is the interaction. We summon walls, we try to destroy them, we try to have them with the least amount of HP so that we overkill them, and then the damage chains and just blows up the whole screen. It's quite heavy on your GPU, much heavier than the original build without the Trampletoes, but it melts the whole screen. So for my build changes, this is still a work in progress. I've been testing and trying different things, but at the same time, I'm just trying to play and farm a bit of currency because I'm quite low, and this Magic Find improved my currency drop rates ridiculously. I've gotten multiple divines. So the build changes, essentially we got rid of Archmage because Trampletoes solved the damage issues, so we don't need the Archmage. Now we have 2 cast on Minion Deaths, one with Comet, one with Frostwall. So we've automated the summoning of the Frostwall and the destruction of the Frostwall by using cast on Minion Death. So we don't even need to cast these spells. Since we got rid of Archmage and we have extra spirit, I've added Blasphemy with Hypothermia. This is costing 60 spirit. It's completely optional. I think you don't even need this. This is just nice to have. So if you can't afford the build and you don't have enough spirit, this is the first thing you can get rid of. And then we've gained 215% rarity. Lots of divines, lots of currency. I get uniques all the time, and these are the main changes. For passives, I did not bother changing anything because boots are OP. Maybe more energy shield would be nice, but again, boots OP. Whatever the issue is, boots are OP. I just didn't feel like I need to do anything to stomp everything and to get currency. So I haven't really invested much time into trying to change passives because just the boots solve everything. So here is what I'm rocking right now. This is not the best. It's not final. This is just something somewhere in the middle that I've been running comfortably and happily, killing things, getting loads of loot, and also not dying as much. I'm still dying a bit too much, mostly because of my stupidity, because I am playing Glass Cannon build with max Rarity, but those are just the kind of choices and sacrifices I have to make. So as you can see, we're essentially overcapped with resistances or undercapped for chaos. I'm pretty sure I can get this fully capped, including chaos, if I get the right gear, but I've tried not to spend too much on the equipment and essentially transition my previous version into this as cheaply as possible. So we have 3000 energy shield, 1.5 life, which is about 4.5k effective health. We have 2.8k mana, so mana is not a problem. And we're running 315 spirit, which is also, I think, more than we need. I think we only need 300. So we have pretty nice mana recovery when we're moving, 453. And we have the best part of the build, which is 215% slain rarity. This means I get divines every few maps now. It's pretty nice. So for the skills, nothing has changed. We're still running the same time freeze with life tap, persistence. Fireball is also the same, scatter shot, wild shards, arcane tempo, mobility. We just use fireball to summon raging spirits. Raging spirits still have the same thing: feeding frenzy, minion instability, infernal legion, and magnified effect. You can move magnified effect between raging spirits and sigil of power for bosses. For mapping, just keep it here. So the first cast on minion death is using Comet, max level with increased critical hit chance from quality, spell echo, inspiration, impetus, and energy retention. I really like these two together, especially with all the sapphires that I have that give meta energy. So we have a total of 178% extra gain energy, as well as 60% to refund half the energy. And then when the comet spam, the echo, so it's not just one, multiple. And then the support skills have less cost is because we want to be able to afford all the mana for all of these. And these are level 25 comets, so they cost quite a bit of mana. So this is the main damage skill. As we can see, we only have 60k, very little compared to the 300k I pushed in my previous video, but this is more than enough. Everything melts, only 53% crit, 561 crit damage. I tried to make the least amount of possible changes in the passive tree, so it doesn't cost too much to respec, and because I'm constantly testing things, I'm also trying to minimize the kind of costs and time. We're still running Eye of Winter, Unleash, Inevitable Critical, Strip Away, and Cold Exposure. Just for bosses, I never use it. I don't even need to use it for bosses actually, but just to put those debuffs, put the crit chance debuff, and essentially almost get to 100% crit and just blow up everything. Blink, we're still using Second Wind and Ingenuity. We also added Wind Wave in my previous video, just because we can, and just because we have the extra dexterity once I get to the gear. I also have Frostwall because I have a spare skill slot. It's not really needed. I don't remember the time where I actually used this manually in the last 20 or 30 hours I've played. I'm using Fortress, Cold Penetration, Icicle, and Glaciation. It's really just placeholder. I'm not sure if this is even needed. Some of these support gems are really nice and would be nice on a cast on minion death with Frostwall, but I'm kind of it just works, so I'm not bothered to make changes at the moment. Blasphemy, we have Hypothermia, Ritualistic Curse, and Decaying Hex. Just because we had extra spirit, I couldn't think of a better way to use it. I could add another cast on minion death, but I like this for bosses. I don't need to activate Hypothermia manually. The less I click, the better it is for me. Finally, with the addition of the second cast on minion death with the Frostwall, so we have to have Frostwall as the lowest level possible, so we're running it at level 9. We are getting +5 from my wand, but that's just something I can't remove at the moment because I want the +5 on my comets. It's just an unfortunate outcome. But the goal is to have it as low as possible so it has the least amount of health. Then we also have Overcharge, Stormfire, Spell Cascade, and Lightning Exposure. People ask, why do I have these when I don't do any lightning damage because of no Archmage? I actually do lightning damage here because my wand has gain extra lightning and extra fire damage. So my Frostwall actually procs these, and it's just an easy way to automate it using cast on minion death. So the walls are summoned. When they get destroyed, they apply all the debuffs I need. I think there's a better way to set this up, but I haven't had the need for it. This works. It blows everything up. Just works. And finally, one of the easiest choice for Spirit is Grim Feast. If you're running ES, you should run Grim Feast. That's how good the skill is. I'm running it with Clarity just to get more mana regen, but this basically makes you have double energy shield. So my energy shield of 3000 is actually somewhere around 6000 when I'm mapping. So 6000 plus 1500, yeah, that's 7.5k of EHP. Pretty much, if I don't do something stupid, I don't die. And usually when I die, I do something stupid. So these are the skill changes. For gear, this is one of the more advanced versions for the build. I will cover the different versions in chapter 6, but I'm still using the same one with +6 cold spell. This is pretty much what you want. The cast speed could be crit damage, it could be something else, but you want crit hit chance, spells, mana, and extra damage. Now, we also moved over to Adziri's Disdain because we wanted the extra energy shield from life, because we've been stacking life with my previous gear, and it also comes with Rarity, so it's nice, and it comes with 2 sockets. Stay till the unique chapter. I will discuss this in more details there. We're running the same scepter from before. Yeah, it's called Scepter, not Scepter. I know, I just forget. Then we have the chest, so we're running Warrior Invictus, Grand Regalia. We're running it with Rarity and maximum mana, and I've socketed +5 elemental resistances to everything to help me cap. Again, I covered this in detail in the unique chapter. Stay tuned for that. I'm running these gloves right now. I actually found them while running maps quite a few weeks ago. This just helps me overcap my resistances. As you can see here, I would actually prefer to run these gloves, but I'm quite below the resistances while being over cold. So I need to do some tweaking in order to fix my resistances with these gloves. But for now, these are fine. I don't really need the damage or the extra life from these, so this is more than enough. I'm also running this ring with 48% rarity, mana, fire damage. I would like it to be cold damage, but I actually managed to make this ring as well as this ring. And this is the reason why I've been collecting every single ring that dropped since the start of early access. When I needed these rings, I actually just went to the page full of white rings. I can even show you rings, amulets. So I have amulets here. I have some rings here. I've been collecting everything since the beginning of the game. I needed new rings and I just started crafting. And out of all the rings that I've had, 2 actually came out like this. So almost perfectly what I wanted. I'm quite happy with them, but I'd still like it to be better. But for now, this is giving me a huge amount of mana regen, intelligence, and as well as rarity of items found, 39 and 48. And the newest addition to the build, Ingenuity. I've got one with 69%. I bought it for 20 divs. This is not affordable for everyone. I spent every single div I had for this that I farmed since the beginning of the game. It's a chase unique. You don't need this to make this build work. This is only needed for the heavy cost version of the build. You can run this perfectly fine without Ingenuity. It's just a chase unique that you should eventually get. And actually one of the reasons I was able to afford it is because I was playing this version of the build without Ingenuity, and I actually managed to get like 5 or 6 divines in about 15 maps or less maybe, and that helped me afford this. So this Ingenuity increases my rings by 70%. So the better the rings, the better the belt. You get the loop. So that's how I'm able to get so much magic find. And finally, Trampletoe, questionably the most ridiculous unique at the moment, maybe after Temporalis. The amount of damage these boots do is just It's insane. It's just absolutely insane. I also managed to get this ring in the trade. Also has everything I want. Rarity, resistance, life mana. But because of my resistance cap issues, I can't play this at the moment, but this is something that you should aim for. Breach rings with as much mana regen, rarity, and resistances. Because once you have Ingenuity and there's resistances on the ring, so I can showcase here, I have 10% chaos resistance. And if I replace this, I get 42, but this ring only gives me 19%. So the rest comes from Ingenuity actually boosting this. So if both my rings have a little bit of resistances plus Ingenuity, I will be resistance capped without a problem, and then I can start thinking about replacing other pieces. So these are the changes to the gear. Passives are pretty much unchanged. I'm still running Chronomancer because that was my silly choice at the beginning of early access. I'm running it with Circular Heartbeat now instead of these two, just because I am actually running life and the recoup is quite nice. But I think you can move these 2 points anywhere you want. The other 4 I think should be standard. You want to have now and again because of the 33% chance not to consume cooldown, so you can blink multiple times. You also want Temporal Rift to be like, oh shit, press this and get the fuck out. And Time Freeze is useful for bosses, but most bosses die before I can even use the skill, so what's the point of freezing when they just die before moving? The rest of the passives are pretty much the same. I've gotten rid of this end of the ring here because I needed some extra passives. I'm still getting the socket because sockets are crazy good. I've now moved more points into Energy Shield here because for the Magic Find version, I was running it with way less Energy Shield, way less life, and I was dying a bit too much. So this was worth it, as well as the 4% maximum mana is quite useful. I'm also running maximum mana here. Also, the points that I've got from here have been moved over here, so I'm getting more mana regen and more maximum mana. This is still up to debate at the moment. I'm not running Eldritch Battery. I could, and it would improve my mana a lot, but I want to find somewhere like a sweet spot between survivability and damage, and I don't feel like I lack damage at any point. Still running the trigger stuff here, crit damage stuff here, crit damage stuff here. And the only newest addition is I'm running the Time Lost Diamond here with maximum mana and maximum life. I'm running it here because I have quite a lot of crit notes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If I run this as well, that's 8. That's 8% mana, 8% life. I could also put some points here if I had some spare points to gain even more life and mana. I'm not sure this is needed. This is just something I had because I was lucky to buy this jewel a few weeks ago. I've been trying to find a way to use it. This is one of the options. The other option is putting it somewhere here, then going all in on these points here, all in on these points here, and all in on these points. Something like this, you can see all those points that you can get quite a bit of extra life and mana. And this is it for the passives. If you're struggling with survivability, get more ES nodes here, ES here, etc. If you're struggling with damage, get more crit rate, crit damage. But with the boots, I don't think you'll struggle for damage, you'll just struggle to survive.
Garukan favors me. Who's responsible for all this noise?
Now we reach the interesting part, the 3 different versions for the build. I realize not everybody can afford all these expensive uniques. Somebody is starting out, they like the build, they like Chronomancer, they like cast on Minion Death, they just want to increase their magic find. That was me a few weeks ago, basically. I cleared most of the game, cleared pinnacle bosses and trials, wanted to see if I can start increasing my magic find. So the starter version is quite simple. We're running a Xeris or any ES helmet. We're running the chest Ghostwright or any ES spirit chest, or a 4-socket Warrior Invictus Grand Regalia. Then we try to get rings with at least 10-15% rarity, 2 of them, and then we must have Trampletoes. This is a good starting point. This doesn't cost much. I'll cover the cost in a second. And this is where I started myself. And slowly through grinding, playing, getting more currency, you can reach this level where you're again running similar helmet, a Xeris or an energy shield helmet. You're running a chest, 5-socket Warrior Invictus Grand Regalia. You're running rings with about 20-30% rarity, and you're running boots with Trampletoe. The other pieces you can fill as you need, magic find, resistances, etc. So what are the priorities for these? The priorities are always Trampletoes, resistance, and then rarity. Once you've covered these, then you can start prioritizing Warrior Invictus, mana, life, and then eventually damage if you really need it. But if you just focus on getting the boots, your resistance is in check, getting as much rarity as you can, you will start noticing better drops. And then finally, the Touchgrass version, which is running, again, same helmet at Xeris or ES helmet, a chest with Warrior Invictus Grand Regalia. You can also add 5 rarity sockets to it to even push this further, but those are very expensive. You run gloves with rarity, you run rings, breach preferably with rarity of 50% plus, then you run an Ingenuity and you still need to run the boots. And with this, you can easily reach to 50% or more. So now what about the costs? Most people can't afford these straight away. You need to farm up. And that's what I did. I started as a starter. I farmed up all the way to enough. I was actually very happy at this stage. And then I'm starting to push something like over here. So the cost for the starter version is as low as 5-10x. You can buy all these pieces for 1-2x. Maybe the boots are more expensive now because more people are trying to use them. But essentially the low end is about 5-10x. And you can push this up to 1-2 divs if you start buying 2-socket helmets, 2-socket boots, Ghostrite that has more than 50% conversion and things like that. So this can also be more expensive than just that, but you should aim somewhere in this price range. And then with this, you get about 0 to 50% rarity, probably less than 100 at this level of budget, which is more than enough as a starting point, and then you can start slowly pushing higher. So then as you start pushing, you reach the enough level, which costs about 2 to 5 divines and can go as high as 10, 20, maybe even more, depends on the kind of items you're looking for. With this, you easily reach 100, 150% rarity. You'll probably be somewhere less than 200, but with this, you have more than enough rarity. This is what you should aim for. That's why I call this build enough, because I noticed significant increase in drop rate for currency. I was happy with it. I don't think you need to push past this, but then again, I like pushing numbers. I want to see bigger numbers. So monkey brain, it is what it is. And then finally, we have the Touchgrass build, which costs anywhere from 30 to 40 divs, and probably that has infinite upper ceiling because of all of these items. Better Ingenuity, a 98% Ingenuity is going to set you back a couple hundred divs, if not more. So this is where you can spend infinite amount of currency. You will reach over 200% rarity. You can push this to 300, maybe even more than that if you really optimize everything. But the cost of this are also infinite, just like the rarity. And myself, I'm somewhere here with 215%. I'm quite happy with it. I think I reached the maximum without spending my life savings on it. So these are the 3 versions. Start cheap and slowly build up all the way to a level where you're happy with, and let me know in the comments if you guys notice any improvement in drop rates, especially if you do this transition here. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear if you notice any more drops, any more divines, because from my own experience, I saw a significant increase that allowed me to afford Ingenuity. Now regarding the uniques, there's a couple of things I want to mention about the uniques that I think is important to all players. First of all, if you're having damage issues, just use Killjoy Linen Wraps. It will double your damage essentially, if not scale it to beyond ridiculous numbers, because these gloves and the boots together, on kill effects happen twice. Yes, that's the overkill damage. So all the overkill damage will happen twice. It cascades. So potentially this has exponential increase. I don't have the numbers, but this is something that can solve all damage issues. Then if you need help with resistance cap and spirit, we have Ventor's Gamble Gold Ring. This is one I actually have. It's nothing too special, but gives you rarity. So it gives you 48% rarity, a bit of resistances. Try to find something that doesn't have too much negative resistances. Spirit, End Life, all useful. It's an easy way to get cheap rarity. You can buy a cheap Ventors for a couple of X, and this can help you with resistances, especially if you have Ingenuity. All these resistances get boosted even further by Ingenuity, so this is something to consider. Now regarding Warrior's chest, so the priorities for this chest I think is rarity, all resistances, then mana, then life, and then I didn't test these two. So I have a chest with rarity and all resistances, and I had a chest with rarity mana and rarity life. I've played with all 3 chests, and the conclusion is that rarity is the best. All resistances is also useful until you're easily capping resistances, and then mana just becomes so much better, so much better, because it both scales damage. You can also use Mind Over Matter to increase your survivability. Mana is useful. And then for the sockets, you can use whatever. You can use mana, life, you can use resistances, all resistances, chaos resistances, really depends on what you're trying to do. But the 5 sockets is also very useful. Finally, we got the Adziri's Helm and the Trampletoe boots. You should aim to get ones with 2 sockets, because with 2 sockets, we are able to get 20 all resist on these 2 pieces. If you combine that with 2 sockets from the gloves that you can also get, so the gloves don't have to be Killjoys, any gloves can have 2 sockets, and then you combine that with 5 socket warrior chest, that means we have a total of 10 to 11 sockets, which is easy 50 to 55% all resistances. Keeping this in mind, you don't need to prioritize this here. It's not as important to get all resistances on the warrior chest, because by simply socketing the right things, you'll be able to reach your all resistances. And these are the couple of key uniques worth considering. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. In the end, this build has given me ridiculous amounts of divines. I've gotten, I think, 10 extra divines since I've started running this. And before that, I maybe have seen 6 in all the gameplay that I've done. I've also seen multiple level 20 gems. All of this allowed me to get Ingenuity, which again pushes the build even further. So I would highly recommend to aim for the 150% magic find. It really helps, again, based on my own experience, so take it as you may. In addition, the build is pure glass cannon. You do a lot of damage, everything melts, but you can also get one shot or clapped by quite a few things, so you need to play carefully. I die more than I want to because the build is so strong at wiping everything on screen that sometimes I zone out and then I forget that I'm actually doing tier 16 juiced map, and I blink into a pack of monsters and they just one-shot me. That's because of poor gameplay by me. If you play this safely and slowly, I don't think you can die, and I don't think you need to lower anything. You can keep pushing Magic Find even further. And then final disclaimer, I want to mention again, this is unoptimized and work in progress. I've been playing this for the last week. It works. I'm happy with it. It needs more changes. It needs more optimizations. And maybe people who've watched this can help me out with this, share some ideas and thoughts and discuss this, how to improve this, how to make it better, and just basically, yeah, farm your divines, get your ingenuities, get your gems, and have fun at endgame. I hope you enjoyed this guide. Please let me know in the comments what you like and don't like. Help me improve. Like and subscribe, do the YouTube things, and peace.